Hey everybody, welcome to Dispatches, an adventure motorcycle ride aimed at breaking down the stigma surrounding post-traumatic stress disorder in the veteran and first responder communities. My name's Mike Terry. I'm a 23-year veteran of the Canadian Armed Forces, and I am affected by post-traumatic stress disorder. I was diagnosed in 2001, retired in 2018, and I immediately started to see my symptoms of PTSD really started to escalate. So I started sharing my story and rode a motorcycle around Canada, encouraging others to share theirs. So we're now in our third year. Um, End of April right now, in the midst of the COVID-19 outbreak. And yeah, it's up in the air whether or not the ride's going to happen this year or not, simply because of travel restrictions and social distancing guidelines and restrictions on gatherings and things like that. So in about just over 2 weeks, I'll be making that announcement. I'll be making that determination of whether that ride happens this year or not. If it doesn't, it just means we roll into other activities. It doesn't mean the end. We just push everything back to 2021, start the planning process again. So last week I talked to you guys about managing influences, and particularly talking about social media. And I just want to kind of continue in that vein today. And, we talked about managing influences and how you might control or manage, what shows up in your timeline, what sort of media you ingest. So the wonder of social media, and perhaps sometimes the curse, is that it's a two-way street. Traditional media, you got your images or information pumped in, and that was pretty much it. You talk to the people around you, but, write a letter to the editor. But you didn't have this direct line and this direct response, to publish a response immediately. And we have that now with social media, which is great. It's awesome until it's not. And that's what I want to talk about today. So, talked about some of the things that can elicit reactions, for me personally. And again, I speak to you as somebody who's I've looked at this because I've had struggles with this. You look at the things that fetch reactions, especially for me, veterans issues. There's a lot of veterans issues in this country that, they just need to be addressed, but they also hit close to home, right? Obviously. So it's easy to get upset or impassioned about those things, politics, other social issues. There's a million things, and when it comes to arguing, people can argue about anything, let's be honest. Anything you're passionate about. So one is managing those inputs and influences, and the other one's managing your reactions to them. It is easy. It's very easy to, and especially, just our culture in general nowadays. It's very, I don't want to get onto, the I'm offended culture or anything, but it's very easy to, especially on social media and online, to be very outspoken when something upsets you. And, and it's my opinion. We're all entitled to our opinion, which we are. But, it's, we can sometimes get a little too wrapped up in the idea that we need to share that opinion right now, or in this form right now. So yeah, it's real easy to do that, and sometimes you can get involved in conversations that turn into some actually really good debate. You can have really good level-headed back and forth. But when we start talking about veteran issues, when we start talking about politics, especially, when you start talking about a lot of social issues, that's usually not the case. Usually it goes into this escalation spiral where, especially you'll get two or three people who will just, they're just upping the ante every post. And, sometimes it's you and another person. I've gotten into that with other people, and yeah, it's like, oh, I'm going to write this scathing response to that. And then it just turns into this ridiculous one-upsmanship. There are other times I've posted things that I'm very passionate about and that can elicit some of those responses. And then I see the comment section just going off on this tangent. People, it's amazing how you feel like you say something and it's so clear, but people will take it their own way. And I'm sure I do the same. And there are times I've posted things that have elicited those responses, and I've sat there and said, man, I regret this. I regret posting this. I regret the way the comments have gone. I regret the way this conversation has gone. Even though, you know, and that's the thing too, is you put it out there and your hands are off the wheel in some cases, and you can sit here and watch two other people do that. But it's really easy to just react and to post something angry. So yeah, you know, that's it's very natural, and I find I've gotten caught in that trap, and I've been trying to be really careful about it. And I think even more, you know, when we look at social isolation, all these things, there's more people who are a little amped up, and they're ready to just have that interaction. You know, there's a need there that needs to be filled, but at the same time, you know, people are, you know, they're amped up and they're impassioned about what's going on, so it can create some pretty heated debates. But yeah, usually the debate aspect doesn't last long before it just turns into that escalation spiral. So the other thing too, you know, I could go on the internet and I could find 20 things a day that actually, you know, they're topics that matter to me. They're topics that very, you know, I'm very invested in, and I could share my opinion on those topics, you know, or I could respond to posts on those topics. I could do that 20, 30 times a day with ease. And it's easy, you know, I mean, you can write something, you can post a response to something, and it doesn't mean you're right or wrong. You know, you can say, yeah, like, this is how I feel. This is my opinion. This is my outlook on that. And it's absolutely valid and it's absolutely right. But if that's all you do, and you're always kind of projecting that, you know, anger or contention, or you're always projecting that, that willingness to kind of get into it, you end up with like kind of a monoculture audience eventually. And so when I look at it, you know, you've got kind of three, I'll break the audience into three types of people, or three groups of people rather. You've got your moderates. You've got people who can kind of see both sides of the issue. These are the people who usually engage in constructive debate and conversation. You've got those folks. You know, there's a lot of them. But you'll also have your cheerleaders. You'll have the people who are on the same side of the issue as you. And what those folks will do is, you know, they'll get onto your thread and they will pump you up. They will agree with things you've said. They'll throw their own fuel on the fire, as it were, right? The cheerleaders will. They're there. They're going to get you going. They're getting ramped up with you. And the other side of it is the trolls. You know, you've got the trolls who will, they're just itching to see your post, and they disagree and they can't wait. They're the other side of that escalation spiral. So what happens if you always project anger? Say I post about politics every day and it's really, you know, heated and it's very opinionated and it's very pointed. Eventually what's going to happen is the moderates are probably going to go, okay, this guy, I'm not even going to waste my time talking to this guy, and they're going to leave. So I have just eliminated anybody who is going to is going to challenge my point of view in a constructive way. All right. So I've created, I've created this culture where anybody moderate who you can have a level-headed conversation with is just going to throw their hands up and go, yeah, I'm out. I'm not dealing with this. So then I've got my cheerleaders. So I put out my thoughts and opinions, and my cheerleaders are right there just pushing me, you know, just pumping me up. And then the trolls are having a field day because you're giving them everything in the world they want to respond to. And that's what you end up creating. You end up creating this, you know, this feedback loop of cheerleaders and trolls who are just going to keep that thing going, and you're never going to get anywhere. You're never going to change a troll's mind. And if all you have reacting to your post is cheerleaders, well, you're not going to change each other's minds because you're already of the same mind. So, you know, that's one of those things about projecting anger on the internet is it's going to shape your audience, and it's going to shape the audience to a spot where you never have to evolve. You know, you never have to look at, okay, the other side of an issue, because, you know, it'll be everybody will be on your side, or they'll be on the other side, and it'll be so contentious, there won't be a lot of thought sharing back and forth. In practical terms and in realistic terms of impact on life, is the energy factor. What energy goes into social media? And I think, you know, there's a lot of times, and I've found myself doing this, where I'm interacting with social media and I'm not thinking about how much energy and time it's taking. And And, you know, I talked last week about that visceral reaction when something really pisses you off. That takes energy, right? That can wear you out. And if you're constantly engaging with that content, reacting to that content, you're going to burn that energy. And when you start responding, and for me, you know, I can be fairly quick-witted. I can be fairly, how do I say it? I can write some scathing responses. I'm pretty decent at it, but it takes energy. So to sit there and write out this response, and because there's this feeling like this is happening in real time, and you've got to, you know, I can't wait 5 days to write a scathing response. It has to be now. It takes that energy to write it. And it's not even just the energy to write it, because once you get sucked into that feedback loop, you know, I write my 3 paragraphs, and I vomit that onto the internet. And the next thing you know, I'm sitting there checking, like waiting. I'm waiting to, like, I want the response. I want to see what the cheerleaders have to say, but more than I want to see what the trolls are doing. Like, I want that response, and I want it, because then, you know, I'm already planning my next move. And holy shit, that's a lot of energy. That is a lot of energy. And yeah, it's just absolutely, it's easy to get sucked into, because it's almost like, you know, it's almost like TV. It's almost like this passive media, but then it's not, you know, and I mean, social media for me has been around for what, 13 years? Facebook, 2007 came out. You know, but definitely over the last 2 years, especially, I've really started to look at how I interact with it and how it affects me, because yeah, I can look at how much time have I wasted, posting about something I'm so, you know, impassioned about on the internet, and it doesn't really amount to squat, you know. And I'm not saying public awareness campaigns, and I'm not saying sharing your opinion isn't valid, but I'm saying we can't just do it mindlessly and reactionary, in a reactionary way, just to everything we see. Because honestly, if you were just going to react to things you have opinions about all day, that's all you would do. You'd be, you know, so. And the other thing about making a monoculture of your audience, you know, if I'm always posting these really scathing or sarcastic or angry posts about politics or religion or, you know, veteran issues, anything at all, social issues, whatever, you can look at this from, you know, anybody can be an extremist in anything, right? You know what I mean? And once you take that extremist kind of approach and you project yourself as that very, you know, and I will say, you know, extremist or just diehard or whatever, you know, you've created that monoculture. If you do that too much, you also expend influence capital. So what the hell is influence capital? Well, okay, when I start screaming on the internet every day about politics, we'll say, and that's all I do all day, every day, all day, every day. And one day I decide I have something really important to say, and I have something that I really want people to see and I really want to share with people. Well, because I created that monoculture audience, I've spent all my influence capital. Nobody's going to pay attention. Nobody's going to even hear it. It may be the most valid thing in the world. It may be what 1 million people need to hear. And because I have created that monoculture audience, nobody's ever going to hear it. Because I'll tell you what, the moment you switch gears from whatever it is you're angry posting about, and you know, you go on to something important and thoughtful and something that matters, 2 things are going to happen. Your cheerleaders are going to go, okay, there's nothing for me to get hyped up about here, away I go. And the trolls are going to say, hey, there's nothing for me to fight about here. You know, the worst thing for a troll is, oh, I actually agree with that. Oh, that's heartfelt. That's intelligent. That's, you know, it's not an opinion piece, or it's, you know, this is actually something that matters. Oh, well, that's no fun. Away I go. So you've just driven off your entire audience. You wasted all of your influence capital probably very early on in your posting habits or your posting cycle. And now you can't reach a meaningful audience. You can't reach an audience or you can't reach an audience in a meaningful way. So I've really been looking at that a lot. I've fallen into that trap of reacting to things. I've fallen into that trap of angry posting. It's happened a few times over the last few weeks. I'm ashamed to admit, but there it is. And so one of the things I did to really, well, actually before that, one thing that really clued me into it, I was looking at a thread, and this was a pretty benign thread, you know, on a Facebook page, and there was some healthy debate. It wasn't about a big hot button topic, but it's funny how people can ramp stuff up. And finally, this comment, and I'll screenshot it and put it up. And he just said, "You know what? I don't care. I regret engaging this conversation." And I screenshotted it because I was like, "Yeah, I feel that." How many times have I gotten into a debate in a comment section and gone, "Oh, I regret this"? How many times have I posted something and then watched the comment section just spiral out of control while other people just hijack it and gone, "I regret posting this"? So yeah, I you know, that definitely, it made me laugh, but it was definitely a bit of an eye opener. So, you know, especially in the last few weeks, being socially isolated, you know, maybe being on social media more than I, you know, like surfing social media more than I should, I kind of started to look at things and say, you know what, I've kind of got to pick up a way of being mindful about things. So when I read something, you know, the first question, is it true? The next question, is it current? Is it relevant? You know, how many times have you reacted to something or got upset about something that is weeks, months, years old, or happened somewhere, you know, in another country, halfway around the world? And those are great. The other thing that I like to ask, and this question usually gets answered with me getting up and away from my computer and going to do something else, is, does reacting or responding to this do anything for my goals? What does this do to move my goals forward? What makes this worth my energy and my time and my thoughts? And if any of those, you know, if the answer to that question is, well, it doesn't, there's been, you know, this process where I've been going, oh, well, okay, I'm just going to leave that alone and walk away. It's very much a process. I'll be honest, I have struggled with it a bit in the recent weeks, but that's all part of the process of, you know, changing thought patterns and changing behavior patterns. Is you got to look at them and you got to question them. So anyway, guys, I'm going to leave you with that. I want to thank everybody for their support. If you are a veteran or first responder and you're affected by PTSD and you have a story to share, I assure you your story is very important, and I encourage you to get in touch, and hopefully we can link up when I'm out on the ride this summer. Again, another couple weeks, the update for the ride will happen. But that's it for this week, guys. I will talk to you next week. Take care of each other. Cheers.